All right, working down my top 25 list, soon to become the top 250 list that all practicing piano players, keyboard players need to know. Let's see what we can do with My Romance. My romance doesn't need to have a moon in the sky. My romance doesn't need a blue lagoon standing by. No month of May, no twinkling stars, no hideaway, no soft guitars. My romance doesn't need a castle rising in Spain, or a dance to a constantly surprising refrain. Wide awake, I can make my most fantastic dreams come true. My romance doesn't need a thing but you. A beautiful song by Rogers and Hart. That would be Richard Rogers and Lorenz Hart. Richard Rogers being probably one of the supreme songwriters of the last century, 20th century. Mostly wrote the music, not the words. He collaborated with Lorenz Hart and Oscar Hammerstein. And many, many great songs from shows. The songs live on and will live on forever. We're in the key of B flat, so the first chord is B flat major 7th. And I like how the real book puts M-A-J 7. I would accept the triangle, just B flat with a little triangle is fine. And then the C minor 7th, of course, they got to use that little dash. We can learn to deal with that. Let's get to work on this tune. We'll just play it with using open voicings. I'm going to try to use all the standard open voicings from Berklee College of Music, taught to me by my instructor, Mr. Ted Howe, and beginning with the 1 chord. And then we have the 2 chord, always a minor, then the 3 chord. And here I'm just using the shortened versions. You know, I could be down here or down here, but since B flat started here, I didn't want to have my root jump from B flat all the way down to C, so I thought I'd just come up here and do a smaller voicing. And on beat 3, there's no melody note, so I just put the chord in lightly, then play the melody. Now here's something very interesting. When you have a diminished chord, what are the tensions that are allowed with a diminished chord? Well, there's a lot of tension there already, so you don't have to add any. But what you can do, you can add a note that's a whole step above any of the chord tones. So here's our diminished chord. A whole step above G is A. So that actually is our melody note. But any of these other notes, C being a whole step above B flat, or F sharp being a whole step above E, or a D sharp being a whole step above the C sharp, any of those notes could be added to the chord. So when I play the open voicing on D flat diminished 7th, well, first I'll play it as a closed voicing down here, then I'll see what I can move around. So I can move the E up to here, I'll keep the G down here, and I'll add another tension here, the note above E. I'll come up with a pretty nice chord there. And it's nice because I got some half-step motion going on, going to the next chord. All right. Now the melody here, you know, it doesn't come down through the flat 9 or the sharp 9. It just comes down from the 3rd to the 2nd to the 1st. So I have to be careful about what tensions I use. If I use, say, a flat 9, it's going to clash a little bit. If I use a sharp 9 and a flat 13, making an altered chord, didn't sound bad, did it? I thought it would sound worse than that. But a safer bet is to, you know, you can put in a sharp 5. We'll call that a augmented chord. Right? Or just play an F7 13 like this. Back to our B flat major 7th, and this time we'll add the 9 because we want our harmony to grow a little bit. We used that exact same chord in the beginning, so when we get to it a second time, we'll add the 9, make it a little bit richer. There's a very standard progression using the major 7th and the flat 7. And then a lot of times it'll go there too, but in this song it doesn't. Now, you know, going from G minor to G, you know, it probably would be made stronger by the tritone substitution there. Yeah, definitely. And there I used another tritone substitution that, you know, that doesn't support the melody all that well. But hey, this is jazz, you know, you got to open your ears a little bit. And sometimes if you change the chord around a little bit, you'll get something even nicer there. Yeah. This is an advanced concept, but to get to E flat, you can do it like this, a 2-5-1. See, you'd expect this 2-5-1, but you can go this way too, right? Because there's your tritone substitution for B flat, right? And you can precede it by a 2, B minor 7th, E7. All right. Let's take the song from the top. That's reharm too. It's A flat 7th, but I suspended it. Instead of there, I went there. Didn't resolve it, just because it works. You know, part of reharm is not changing the bass note to make it some completely different chord. It's just, say, taking an A flat 7th and exploring, you know, what all you can do with it. Could you put a sharp 11 with it? Yes, you could. You know, so just enriching the chords is reharmonization. F minor 7th with a 13 as the melody note. It's a pretty nice chord. You know, the tension voicing would be like that. And, you know, sometimes chords like that, you know, when you're reharmonizing, you look kind of for ways to make something like that a little bit more smooth, because the minor 13 chord you know, that's a chord with a fair amount of dissonance to it. And sometimes reharmonization is not to add dissonance, but to take away some dissonance and make it a little bit more palatable. So in that first line, there are really 3 chords that happen where there is no melody note present. We're holding a melody note from a previous spot. So like right here, B flat major 7th, and then we have to play a C minor 7th chord before we play the melody because we want our chords to be on beat 1 and beat 3. 1, 2. So, since there's no melody, I can play any kind of C minor 7th chord I want. I can add a tension to it, make it C minor 9th, C minor 11th, maybe like that. I could play something down low. I could play a high chord up here, maybe, something like that. I don't know if it would work. Doesn't really work very well. So I could just maybe add this. Ninth in there, and then on to the D minor, and here we have F 7th, so I'm going to play F 13. It's so close to a standard voicing of this, but I've moved the 5th up to the 7th and this 7th down to the 13, and that's a chord, that I use a lot. And because I like the sound of that chord, I've practiced it in all 12 keys. I could take it through the cycle, think. So it's a chord I'm familiar with, and this is how you build your vocabulary of chords, is you find chords that you like, and then you practice them in all 12 keys, and then you look for songs where you can use them and try to use them in any available situation until you feel comfortable with them. So F7, 13. And, I'm actually hitting the melody note too soon, so I'll leave it off. I'll go C minor 7th, then just hit this part of it and add that. And then we're back to B flat major 7th. Perhaps I could add a 9th to make it a little richer. Then here's another chord. The melody doesn't come back until beat 4, and it says D7. And I see that the melody note is a flat 13 there. And so I'm going to go ahead and play an altered chord. In this case, a sharp 9 chord. The standard voicing would be the 7th here. And that's okay. You can't really go much lower than that with a 7th. You get down here, it starts to sound too muddy. Typically, I play an octave there, but I kind of like the sound of the 7th. Maybe I'll learn something today. This is a little harmonic device of mine. Not that I invented it, but whenever you have a minor chord that goes down to what we call the minor major 7th, like that. And I like the way the chart's written here. I see the G minor with the dash, but they put the MAJ7 in parentheses, so it's pretty clear that way. Had they not put the parentheses there, it would have been a little bit of a mystery chord. Not that I couldn't have figured it out, but I just probably wouldn't get it real quickly that way. So I like the parentheses. But anyway, as I go down to the major 7th, I sometimes will move the 5 up too, and it kind of creates a little E flat minor chord there, you see. It's pretty dissonant down in this low register. And here, I almost did what I did before, which, was this 13 chord, but there's a standard voicing for that 13 chord, this. So that's what I did. And here we have B flat 7th. Okay. Now, the next melody note is F, so I should probably play something that doesn't have F there. I could play, ninth chord down here. Standard voicing would have the 7th here, but it's too low for a 7th down here, so I just left the 7th up here, and the standard voicing is this. Take away that low A flat. It's just too low. All right, E flat major 7th. It's bordering on being too low. How low can you take this chord? You know, not much lower than E flat, really. And some people won't even like it there, so you take the major 7th away, put a 2nd instead. It's a little sweeter. And A flat 7th, I'll use that 13 chord again. Even a pure E flat sounds nice there. And here, you know, just to add a little bell tone, you know, you could use the so what chord. Sounds nice over a B flat. Okay. And then here we go, E minor 7 flat 5. Here's the standard voicing, because the melody note's an 11, so I know exactly what to play. I could do this. There's a few other great ways to play it too. Probably about 1,200 other good ways of playing it.